Hey, what's going on, Roller YouTube? My name is Pat, and this is my video retrospective on Watchmen. Now, give you a warning, this is not a review. This is a retrospective. What that means is I'll be talking about material um, in a manner that assumes that the viewer has seen the movie. So I will be ruining lines if you haven't seen it. So if you haven't seen it, you plan on seeing it, please turn off this video now. That said, let me jump into this. Okay, so what the hell were they thinking? Oh my god, they ruined Watchmen. And, it's so funny that they kept all these different scenes and, like, shots and, like, lines all intact, perfectly intact. But then when it gets to the important stuff, they fuck it in the ass. What was up with that? Why is it Rorschach just hacked up the guy's head instead of, like, setting him on fire like he did in the book? And, like, it was way different than that. It was, and for those of you who haven't read the book, what he does instead is he chains him up to a furnace, pours gasoline all around him, sets it on fire, and then throws him a hacksaw and says, "Don't bother with the chain. You'll never make it in time." And says basically you can get through bone a lot faster. And he walks out and like listens to the guy burn to death. And it's pretty brutal. It's a lot more brutal than just sitting there watching him hack apart the guy's head with a hatchet, and or a cleaver. I'm sorry, that was just ridiculous. And it was like, we'll have on-screen violence to make up for the lack of action, is what I felt like Zack Snyder was doing the entire time. But he flubbed so many stuff. Like, okay, the back and forth rhetoric inside the prison cell when they're trying to get him, like, like tall order, slim, shortcomings or something like that. He said all these like zingers at him and like fat chance, and they were rushed through the scene so fast that there was no comedic timing, and it was just all screwed up to hell, and I hated it. God, that was awful. They completely ruined the scene. Like, the audience that, well, it was a completely full theater when I went, but the audience like laughed at all the spots that they weren't supposed to laugh at, and the parts that were supposed to be funny, they just kind of sat there like, what's going on? Because it was just way too fast, and they ruined so many concepts of the movie. Like, they never drew across that, the point of Rorschach's character is that his downfall was on bending morality, that like should be a virtue, and yet it's his downfall. And that's what made the book so great to me. And you kind of lost a lot of that too, especially when Dr. Manhattan killed him in front of the Night Owl, and that's not how it should have gone down. What it should have gone down is that Night Owl was having sex with Dr. Manhattan's former girlfriend or whatever, Silhouette, and go out and kill Rorschach at the same time behind his back so that he's oblivious to it, and that like Dr. Manhattan's walking through the compound finding peace. But they also like what was up with that scene though? I mean, the shooting of that scene was just awful. The Arctic scene, like in the book, what made it so great is it was this big white abyss, and it was like so what's the word I'm looking for? It was such a setup for the big final confrontation. Where in this one they have this goofy scene like, oh, you need to pull up, you need to pull up, and it was just like, you don't need that. And they made it to where like everything in the on the set had dynamics, and like they put it on a cliffside on the Arctic, and it was all dirty looking snow, and it was this big gaudy like structure, but it wasn't the case in the book. And I think the book just had it much better for this look and style. And like this is where they start altering the storyboard, like really, where it's like, okay, when it's unimportant to the story, let's not alter a single damn thing. When it is important to the story, let's take out the fucking hatchet and just start going at it. And that's how I see it. And they completely rushed through the scene when Ozymandias was doing his speech to the scientists, and then you find out that the scientists are actually dead like halfway through the speech, because they made the speech so damn short. It was like blah blah blah, drink, turn around, they're all dead. Like, what? And it was much better when it was I think when the snow started gathering up and he opened up the arboretum to him, and but they didn't do that. I think the arboretum was a beautiful thing to have, like this lush jungle-like area in the middle of the Arctic, and then opening it up and killing it. I thought that was like a perfect symbology. But no, they flubbed it. And then like, oh god, they flubbed the line. They flubbed the line. The like in the book, well, I think he says like, Dan, I'm not a Republic serial villain. Like, if I thought there was 1 ounce of you ever affecting my outcome, do you think I would tell you? I did it 35 minutes ago. And like, no, we can't have that. Like, we have to ruin it. Like, I'm not Dan. I'm not a serial. I'm not a comic book villain. Like, Like, would you think I would tell you if I thought that you could affect it? I activated the machinery 35 minutes ago. Like, oh, so I activated the machinery so I can throw out a red herring that's completely unnecessary for the crowd to go, oh, well, they can still stop it, but that's not supposed to be the case. Like, oh, God, they fucked up that line so bad. It was the greatest line in all of fiction, and they fucked it. I hate that line. I hate the line in the movie. They completely ruined it. Let's see what else. They didn't develop Rorschach's character enough, and I think that if I were to do the movie, and I know it's bad to like get in that game if I would do the movie, but I would try to stop trying to centralize it around all the characters, and I would probably like put it more on Rorschach because you have to. You have to. I mean, just for time constraints, and like Rorschach is the most necessary character, especially considering his death in the end. But I think they flubbed it, and they just ruined a lot of things. Possibly one of the better ways to have done the movie better is I think that they should have had chapters, and I think that they could have had like black boxes come up with quotes in between it and make it sizable bites of the story, because I mean it was still present there, but it didn't have a defining break for the viewer, and I think it would have been an easier view for for the viewers if they handled it in pocketed stories and made it more distinct. But I digress. I kind of look at it in the end though, and I say like, the big problem is that there was too much information in too little time. They're speed reading through like sections of it, and Zack Snyder was constantly trying to put into action to stop from boring the audience to death. And the information was just too much to process, and so what he needed to do is he needed to like really be liberal with the editing. And you know, if he was really liberal with the editing and took out a lot of stuff, then the issue would be that, you know, the traditionalists would be like, well, they left out this scene, they left out that scene, and there's no winning when making a Watchmen movie. I think I had a conversation a long time ago with my buddy about how they could never do a Watchmen movie and the reasons why, and like that was one of the reasons he said. He said there's too much information and they would have to edit some stuff out, and it's just uneditable. And I think he's right now, like years later. So yeah, Mike out there, if you remember us having that conversation, like, yeah, I remember it too, and I concede that you were right, that it's uneditable. And also, like, I'm kind of surprised that they allowed a naked male character in a movie like that, though, and like, I'm surprised that the American viewing audience isn't having a shit fit over it because we're insane about stuff like that. I think we're the only culture in the entire world that values like is more okay with our children seeing people murder each other than seeing people naked. So we're a pretty backward society about that. I thought it was kind of funny how like when like the first time he comes on the scene, like and shows like that he's naked, everyone's like ah, and then the second time it's like giggle giggle, third time's like giggle. End of the movie, no one even remembers that he's naked. You know, it's like it's not a non-issue at that point. And I think it's really funny though, and that says something about us as a society, about the way we view nudity. But whatever, I'm getting too heady into it, I guess. Um, Man, I don't know. I think Alan Moore is probably like really pissed about this movie, and the guy just looks scary as hell, and I imagine he would be pissed. Um, so really, that's about all I can say about the movie. And oh yeah, what's up with the action scenes? Like trying to be overly graphic and violent for the sake of being like entertaining, and that's the reason I think why they had the hatchet scene where he just took apart the guy's head like with a cleaver. And but it's like it didn't really affect me much at all. I was just sitting there looking at it, and it was way too 300. And Zack Snyder like just kept a shorthand of what he already did, and that wasn't cool. Like I'm thinking that you're not a good director if you keep trying to do the same thing, but that's just me. Anyways, that's about all I have to say. Thanks for watching, and leave your comments. I'll be glad to have conversations online. That's cool. Have a good day.